Welcome to University of Hoops, the show that gives you an inside look at the people making everything happen on your favorite basketball team. Today, we welcome Chicago Bulls coordinator of team operations and player engagement, Daniel Roy. Daniel, welcome to the show, man. How you doing?
I'm good, man. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here and just talk with you.
Absolutely. Well, we'll start things off just by kind of getting into what your job title means exactly with the Bulls.
Yeah, so it's kind of new to me still, but I'm figuring it out. So like the team operations, that's kind of self-explanatory, and then the player engagement, it's kind of unique, but it's exciting. So my day to day is like come in, it's kind of like unpredictable, right? Which is kind of part of the fun of the job. So the team operations, helping with logistics, some team travel, but not necessarily all. Like the team, our equipment manager deals with that, but we do a lot of like individual travel, if that makes sense. So like things that pop up for individuals, they'll hit us up, we'll book stuff for them, and then sending out itineraries and like little things like that. That's sort of like the team operations stuff. And then the player engagement, we do a lot of like off-court player development for the players. We attend different like player appearances in the community, with partnerships, things like that. But any random like request or um, thing that the players need off the court, will be the go-to. So I'm not the first in charge in my department here, but me and my boss work together in handling all like the player stuff off the court. So it's pretty unique, and get to work with a lot of different people within the organization. And then obviously earning that trust with the players and just being there for them.
Yeah, absolutely. Sounds like a really cool job and sort of a different side to team operations, it sounds like. And just judging from doing some research about you and seeing kind of what your journey has been like, I would guess that it's something that is probably pretty fulfilling to be working in the NBA and having an impact within an organization. Speaking of which, how long have you been with the Bulls up to this point?
This is my first year, so I moved here in September. So it's still kind of fresh, but it all moves fast, and you get to know people really quickly. So it feels like I've been here a little while longer, but it's been great.
That's always a great sign. Now that we know more about where you are today, before we get into more of the some more of the NBA stuff a little later on, I want you to take us back to the beginning, because I think that that's something that can be really helpful for people and really sort of give people an idea of, okay, this is what this person's roadmap was to get to where they are and what they're doing, and you specifically for basketball nerds like us, working in the NBA and with a team. So, if you don't mind, take us back to the beginning and tell us about how you got your start in this this crazy basketball world that we live in.
For sure. It's very it's interesting how it got started. So, growing up, obviously, like I'm a big fan of sports. Love watching basketball, all and baseball, football, everything. But like, I was a big fan of the NBA. I was a big Kobe guy growing up. So like, my sister played AAU too. So like, I was familiar with basketball, obviously. I played whenever I was a kid, but then eventually when I got to high school, I stopped playing um basketball because I gave everything up for soccer. And because of that, I actually got a college scholarship to play soccer at LSU Alexandria, NAIA school in Louisiana. And so that's what took me there. And then my freshman year, played soccer. And then at a point where basketball season was right around the corner, everybody in like everybody in the school got an email from the head coach from the basketball team, looking for like a voluntary student manager, and I was the first one to bite. I went talked to the coach in the office, started doing stuff for the team, washing laundry, like things like that. It wasn't anything serious, but like the more and more time I spent around the team, the more and more I enjoyed it. So I got my feet wet in like the basketball world as a student manager. Um, and more I learned from the coaches and the players and everything day to day. I got to learn and figure out like, man, this is gonna take some time. Like I got to spend some time doing my job, things like that. Finished out the year playing soccer with the team. Um, and it was good. But it was the first year for soccer at the university as well as basketball. So like everything was just new. After the season, just went straight to basketball, spent full time with the basketball team, started traveling with the basketball team and things like that. And I enjoyed it. Fast forward past the season in the summer and things like that, I met some certain people in order to work different events around the country, working with like Under Armour on the Under Armour Association AAU circuit. So I got to travel in the summers and do stuff with them. Really enjoyed it. Also got connected with people through USA Basketball and worked some camps there. So at a certain point that summer, I realized, man, this is like really fun. I enjoy meeting people, traveling around the country, working different events. So therefore, I ended up not playing soccer anymore after that and was full-time student manager for the men's basketball team at LSUA. And then in the summers, worked Under Armour events, USA Basketball, and just, enjoyed it and just met as many people as I could by just working different basketball events. So that's kind of how I got into basketball and made connections. And then after LSU Alexandria, I was a graduate assistant for UL Lafayette in my hometown, Lafayette, Louisiana. And then spent 2 years there and graduated. Then that was the pandemic. Got to work in the bubble after that, just kind of in a waiting phase where like I was didn't know what if I was going to get a job somewhere or whatnot. Ended up spending the full time in the bubble working as a team attendant, and then after that went back home. Kind of got connected with the video coordinator with the Hornets, and got a job with the Hornets, and then spent 3 years there, and then now I'm here with the Bulls. So that's kind of like a simulated version. I know we'll get into it a little bit more, but that's kind of how I got here today.
Thank you for sharing and kind of taking us through the stops. I got to ask you before we move on to some other stuff, because you mentioned the bubble. What was that like? That was such a fascinating time. Obviously, none of us knew whether sports were even going to be played. Then the NBA is able to put together this really sort of just crazy competitive environment. And that, tell me if you agree with me. I mean, that was some of the best basketball, the best playoff of basketball, high intensity basketball that we saw. You know what I mean? So what was
Yeah,
that? What was that like, especially as a hoops head, like being inside there and um just being in that environment when the outside world was in such a crazy sort of state at the time?
yeah. It's crazy because I still talk about it to this day, like how unique it was and just the environment. I enjoyed it. Like day to day, it like at certain points it got old, but then I realized like I'm in the bubble. I'm with NBA players. I'm day to day just like walking around the hotel and things like that. It's just amazing. And I formed a routine in there. We got tested every day. We worked games. I was fortunate enough to stay throughout the playoffs and through the finals. So it was an awesome experience. It's funny because like early on, we had so many team attendants in the bubble, and you worked one game a day pretty much. So you'd get your game times, things like that. But in the morning, you always had your routine. Wake up, go test, eat breakfast, spend some time doing whatever, and then you would either have a game that afternoon or that night. But every day it's funny because everybody talks about pickleball and stuff like that, and they had these pickleball courts in the middle of the hotel like area, and the referees were playing pickleball every day and things like that. So like it was a hot like thing to do. And every day I would play pickleball, things like that. Go eat lunch, chill out in the room, things like and then go catch my bus for the bus. And then go to the game, come back, eat dinner, go to sleep, and like do that every day. You try to find different things to do, like ride bikes or fish or I don't know, keep it fresh, But it was such a unique time that like hopefully it never happens again, but it's something I can talk about the rest of my life for sure. Because the and just being at the games and just being able to hear everything and see what players are doing on the benches and all that is it was incredible. And yeah, it's just pure basketball. So like no there's a little bit of fan engagement towards the end, like families and stuff could come in for playoffs and all that, but before that it's like it's just you, the players, the referees in and like people doing the clock and stuff in the gym, and that's it. It was very unique, and you got to see a lot that goes on that a lot of people don't get to see.
I can only imagine what that must have been like, especially for somebody in their early part of their career to get that opportunity. And like you said, you hope that it never happens again, but sometimes life works out to where you're able to get opportunities that you never would have thought you would have gotten. Like that's not something that you obviously put on your board years ago. And we're like, I want to work in the NBA bubble because you didn't even know that none of us knew that that was even going to be a thing. And just to
Uh,
clarify for the audience, what was your official title when you were in the bubble? I know you said you worked with team attendance. Is that right?
yeah, yeah. So we were team attendants. The NBA provided like every NBA team has home like team attendants that take care of the home team and the away team. And the NBA provided most of the team attendance for the bubble, but also they like the NBA partnered with USA Basketball to provide more help for the bubble, and we used a lot of support staff from USA Basketball in the bubble as well to assist the NBA team attendance, but we all did the same stuff.
Got you. Super interesting. Thank you for sharing that part of your journey. Speaking of your journey, I want to go back a little bit to what we were talking about a few minutes ago, and just kind of touch on the NAIA level because oftentimes, people they shoot for whether, I work in media, so you're always shooting for like working for the big companies or whatever. Working on the team side, you're always shooting to work for the biggest teams and work at that NBA level. But I don't think enough people understand the grind and sort of the mentality that you have to last and to not give up, even when things are hard and when you don't have all the resources in the world. And you have excuses you could turn to maybe try something else, whether it be money or opportunity in another industry, but it may not be what you love. You know what I mean? And clearly you love basketball, and that's why you stuck it out and you were able to work your way up. So with that in mind, what are some things that you learned at that NAIA level that you feel like have prepared you well for now what you're doing in the NBA?
For sure. Yeah. It's amazing because like the people I was with at the NAIA level, the players, the staff, like I still talk to them to this day, and they're some of the best people that I've learned from over the years and everything. I would just say like the resources at the NAIA level aren't all there, but it's kind of like our head coach used to say while I was there is like make it big time where you are. So it's like no matter how bad the facilities are, no matter like the money or anything like that, like you try and do your best wherever you are, and that's what we did. So at LSUA, we were fortunate enough to have like a lot of talent come through, and in my 4 years there, we won four conference championships, made it to national championship, lost at the buzzer, but it's like those journeys were amazing, and it's I wouldn't trade it for anything. Is like my experiences there and everything. I was the only manager there. There was a couple people that bounced in and out to try and be a manager and all that, but um, for the most part, I was the only manager there. But it allowed me to do so much, and what the NAIA taught me was like there's no job too big or too small. Like no matter what it is, get it done. And like you can get anything done that like you set your mind to kind of. And I know it sounds like cliche or whatever, but it's really true. It's just the people and the experiences I had there like were amazing. From doing the laundry and to setting up meals to making sure the stuff was packed for the road trip. Like it was it taught me so much. Like if I didn't work in the NAIA and I went to like a D1 that had 10 different managers, I don't think I would be here, to be honest with you. just because of what it allowed me to do at that level. And thankfully, Coach Cordaro is the name of the coach I worked for 4 years there, and he's at Troy University now as the Dobo, but he allowed me to do so much while I was there. At the beginning, I didn't know what I was getting into, and like I just learned and learned and learned over those years. And by the end of it, I was essentially like his Dobo there, even though we didn't have that position at the NAIA level, but like that's essentially what I like was doing. And it was incredible. So I definitely wouldn't trade anything for those NAIA days.
That's awesome, man. And that's really what it's about, right? Along the way is making the most of your opportunities. And like you said, and like the advice that you got from Coach Cordero and from other people that were there, like make it big time. I think that that's a great message, and something that, you know, helps people eventually get to where it is, wherever it is that they want to be, whether that is at the NBA level or the D1 level or whatever. And of course, basketball, it's such a big space. There are people that spend their whole careers at the NAIA level or elsewhere, or high school or whatever, just to be around the game in some capacity. And, um, it all of our journeys are different, and it all sort of informs what we learn and what we take on. So I think that that's a great message. And I wanted to ask you one follow up about just what you mentioned about Coach Cordero there. What would you say in terms of where you are now at the NBA level? What's something that he specifically taught you, that you think has helped you a lot?
Just being available. To be honest with you, it's so simple. But like at that level, he would like call me, like, right? Like he just pick up the phone, call me, text me, whatever, expecting that I would be available. And I remember like just meeting with him and talking with him. It's like being available is such a simple thing to do, but yet it goes so far. Like if you're reliable and available, it's like what else? Like you obviously your hard work and what you can do goes from there, but it's just picking up the phone. It's just responding to a message like and saying got it or yeah, I'll take care of it and things like that. It's just so simple, but yet it goes so far if you do it consistently.
Absolutely. Well, clearly you did that well enough to be successful there and then carry it on to your next stops. Sort of moving on, and speaking of which, take us behind the curtain a little bit. I know you touch on it a little bit earlier, and I'm sure that working in the bubble really helped you sort of establish some connections in the NBA and build some relationships. But how did you get that first full-time opportunity at the NBA level?
Yeah, for sure. So I remember being at home during the pandemic, not really knowing what was going to happen. Was thinking about maybe going back to UL Lafayette on staff, figuring it out. Um, but I was I was talking to our assistant coach at UL Lafayette, and he would always like pick my brain and ask me what I want to do in the long run and things like that. Never really had an answer. I was just like, I just want to enjoy what I do and just, I don't know, figure it out from there. And so he knew somebody, the video coordinator with the Charlotte Hornets at the time, and he got me in touch with him. Who, come to find out, I actually met him previously at LSUA whenever he was working at like a lower level Division 1. But got me in touch with him and initially was like trying to figure out a role like in his video room or something, to get on or whatever. And typically they want former players in a video room, so that wasn't me. I wasn't a former player to be on court and with NBA guys. So that didn't really work out. A few days later, he reaches back out to that assistant coach and was like, "Hey, would he be interested in like a special assistant to the head coach type of position?" And he sent that to me, and I was like, "Yeah, of course, like anything to get my foot in the door." So it went from there, got me in touch, jumped on the phone, kind of went back and forth, trying to figure out like if it's a role that he can see me in or if it's a role that I like, and we just kept communicating over like a week and a half or so. It was something I really wanted to do. And so they got me in touch with Coach Borrego at the time, who was the head coach with the Hornets. And we just kind of did like an informal interview and talked on the phone and went from there. And come to find out, I got it and moved to Charlotte towards the end of the pandemic. And it was just a weird time, but it's all about timing in this industry. So moved out to Charlotte and went from there. So I went out there as a coordinator of basketball operations, and just pretty much handled all of like the coaches, logistics and operations and stuff, mainly for our head coach, Coach Borrego at the time, and kind of went from there.
And once you get to the NBA level and you got your foot in the door, you did it, right? You got to that top level. What's the biggest difference that you noticed from your compared to your prior stops?
Yeah. It's actually kind of crazy, but in the NBA, I feel like there's a standard you have to reach, right, with everything you do, but everybody has like their role, right? And it's perfecting that role, and it could be simple if you allow it to be. And I would say like the biggest difference is like the main roles for each individual. Whereas coming from an NAIA, I had my hands in a whole lot of different things, right? Able to have the freedom to like do anything. And I would say like as you go and now the NBA, it's like you can't like it's not necessarily you can't do it. It's just like you have to be really good at what you do rather than be decent in a whole lot of different areas. You know what I mean? So I would say like coming to this level, it's like perfecting your role and reaching that standard as to what you do. And that's why the NBA is what it is. It's because like everybody here reaches that standard in what they do and tries to, exceed every year and learn. So I would just say like the main roles for staffs are perfected at this level rather than a whole bunch of different areas at like an NAIA level.
Gotcha. Makes a lot of sense. Like you said, it's the NBA. That's why people are the best in the world at what they do in their positions, whether they're on the court, off the court, in the video room, whatever the case may be. Speaking of advice and sort of how you made your way up the ladder and got yourself to the NBA, what's your best advice for people who are trying to break into the basketball industry in any capacity, whether that is to eventually get to the NBA or college or high school or whatever it may be?
Yeah, it's funny because like I get asked this question a lot, and the answer is pretty simple in my opinion. It's like it's not forcing it. Like everything happens because of relationships and timing, in my opinion. Like the relationships come naturally. It's not something that you try and force. It's something that's like built over time, and part of the reason why like I continued to work different events while I was in college and stuff in the summer, AAU and USA basketball, is because I enjoyed being around those people that I worked with, and building those relationships and just like not being like it's not necessarily the word fake, but it's like a lot of people try and force relationships just because of jobs. Um, I would say just like showing face and showing up and being available. Those are like the biggest things, and consistency. It's like not trying to, and it's not a bad thing to do. It's like hitting people up on LinkedIn and like saying, "Hey, like, do you have any jobs or do you have any internships and things?" And that's good, like connecting with people. But it's really like genuinely getting to know somebody, checking in on people and things like that. And those relationships don't always lead to jobs, but who knows if that person that you are building that relationship with ends up getting a job down the line. And it's like they'll hit you up just because they know you're a good person and are available and willing to do those little things and stuff. So I would just say like the timing and the relationships is like the biggest thing, and it'll come naturally over time in my opinion. And that's kind of my answer to that question, I guess.
Makes a lot of sense. Um, Speaking of which, so we talked a lot about, advice that you would give to other people, right? based on where you are in the business. What's the best piece of advice that you've been given by somebody at the NBA level, in operations or coaching or any capacity?
Yeah. It's funny because there's two answers to this. One's the real one. The other one's kind of like something that's stuck with me ever since. But I'll give you the one that's kind of just stuck with me. Um, I'll never forget my one of my first practices at like NAIA at LSUA. One of our assistant coaches, he was a high school coach and he moved back home, but he always told me have a towel and a ball during practice. And I thought that was like the most simple thing as a manager. But like that sort of like mindset sticks with me until this day. It's like have a ball and a towel. Like you never know what's gonna happen during practices. Someone might fall, the ball might go somewhere. You're always prepared, you know? So something simple like that has stuck with me till this day. And even if you're not a manager, like I always find myself with a towel, sometimes a ball, maybe not as much now because there's a lot of other people to do that, but just to be prepared and you never know what's going to happen. That's one of the things. But the other one is something I mentioned already, but let's see if I can say this right. The best ability is availability. And that I've mentioned that already. But it's just being available, being willing to work. It's kind of crazy because like sometimes during practices and like when I was a manager, graduate assistant, even to this day, it's like I don't like sitting down during practices or if there's things going on, like I don't like to sit down just because like I feel like if I'm sitting down, people aren't going to ask me to do something or maybe I don't look like I'm ready to do something or available. So I would just say the best ability is availability. So I know I've mentioned that a lot already, but it's true. Yeah, being available goes so far.
Got you. And the last thing that I'll ask you, Daniel, you've been so gracious with your time, and we greatly appreciate it here at University of Hoops. Um, what's your why? What's the reason why you're doing what you're doing in the sport of basketball?
Yeah, that's a great question. I never really think about that to be honest with you, but I don't know. It's just being genuine and being someone that other people want to be around and like knowing that if I am genuine and want to help people and do good, like people can go back to like my family and say like, hey man, like he's not only like doing his job, but he's also like making it enjoyable. So I would just say like just being genuine, being a good person and like just enjoying it and helping others enjoy it too, and helping like relieve the stress of others or like anything I can do to help, like I just enjoy it and it's rewarding, So being in the game of basketball, it helps me do that and in a simple way too. So and it goes so far and just, just all around you really, like day to day, just seeing people like smile and like laugh or being a bright spot in someone's day, like that is just rewarding. So being around this every day, it's a blessing. So and I thank God for it. So it's not really a job to me. So
Some great words of wisdom, Daniel. Well, thank you again so much for your time, and thank you for just sharing sort of what you've done to get to where you are at the NBA level. It's been super interesting.
for sure. No, I appreciate y'all having me and this was fun. So thank you.
Absolutely, Daniel. And thank you for watching and listening to University of Hoops. This is a new show that gives you an inside look at the people making everything happen on your favorite basketball team. We have new episodes coming for you every single week here on YouTube. So stay tuned for those shows. I'm Blake Atwell, and we will see you next time.